going on, guys? Welcome to the Spectacular Spoiler League. I'm the Pandan Superman, the mayor of Hype City, HazyRome, and as always, I'm joined by the Gotham Knight, the Prime Minister of Post-Production, DeepBoyce. But this right here, this video is a little bit different than how we're gonna usually do things. So, this video is actually a little bit of a throwback. A couple weeks ago, we were talking about a potential new series that would come after Star Wars Rebels. We actually foresaw that Star Wars Rebels was going to be ending. However, we thought that this season, aka season 3, the one that just wrapped up, might be the last season of Rebels. But we found out at Star Wars Celebration that Rebels is getting one more season and then it's going to end. So this conversation is just a throwback where me and Boyce we're talking about a potential new series to follow Star Wars Rebels. So you might hear, a couple things where it seems like we're talking about a potential Rebels season 3 wrap up, but ignore that. Just listen to the gist of the conversation, which is a new series that could be on the way. Anyway, guys, enjoy. I'll catch you guys later. So that's a question that I had too, but I just wanted to say the reason why I brought up Dave Filoni is because Dave Filoni is no longer supervising director on Rebels. According to Lucasfilm, right, for season 3, he's stepped into like a bigger position where, in quotes, he's creatively overseeing future animation development. So that's a telltale sign that had the head honcho, who they refer to as the man in the cowboy hat, or the man in the hat, because he's always rocking a cowboy hat, and he's actually become kind of like a important piece in telling Star Wars stories in the new era, the Disney-led Star Wars era. And if he's moved on from Rebels, I think it's a telltale sign that there's going to be a new show coming out. Now, where that show lines up is a damn good question. The end of the original trilogy era, the time after that is prime. I had told you that I bet you after the original trilogy, the sequel trilogy is over, that they're going to have an animation show that takes place in between that 30-year gap between episode 6 and episode 7, because at the end of the day, it just makes sense. Yeah. But to have a show that takes place in the original trilogy era, there's some room to tell some stories there too. In the Star Wars comics, there's some stories between episodes 4 and 5 where we essentially get, Luke Skywalker furthering his Jedi training a bit, and even Darth Vader, coming to the conclusion that, because when you start episode 5, you kind of realize, like, Darth Vader kind of realizes that Luke is his son. Mm-hmm. He kind of draws that conclusion pretty naturally. So in the comics, the Star Wars comics, which are canon, he's already, drawn that conclusion himself. Like, he's trying to find out about Luke and potentially capture Luke without the Emperor's knowledge. So that might be some prime real estate to explore. It's just, it depends on how long they want this new animated series to go on, because we've got one show which wasn't under Disney, which ran for, let's call it 5.5 seasons, and we got another show that's 3 seasons. So how long do you want these shows to last? Well, because it seems like multiple ideas for animated shows are in progress. You know what I mean? So are they intending on telling like short stories and bursts? And say, all right, we're going to do a little series here that's like 2 seasons or 3 seasons and then move on. Like, how long do you think they're trying to have these shows go on? Because I think that'll key us into what period they're going to explore.
I mean, the odd thing about cartoon shows is I think on average they last maybe like 3 seasons tops. I mean, I know Star Wars Rebels is the 3rd season, but I don't know. Maybe I could be wrong. But I feel like live action TV shows last a little longer than animation shows. I guess because animation shows are probably longer and more harder to make because you have to animate and all that. But, as you were saying, I was kind of thinking that the original era, I'm not sure exactly what that would be called, that original, the episodes 4 through 6, I think that might be the best place to draw out and make material for cartoon shows.
Think so?
Yeah, because I think people are still okay with watching content from that era. I think ultimately people will be all right if there's a Han Solo cartoon show,
Sure.
or there's a Rogue Squadron cartoon show, maybe Luke or maybe Wedge Antilles. If there's even something right after Episode 6 is still part of that era. Like, what is Luke doing after, like immediately after the Empire is defeated?
So you're including post Episode 6 as part of that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Like, so you're including that 30-year gap between 6 and 7.
Not necessarily a 30-year gap. I'm not making too much sense, but I mean something that is just like, I think if it's like a day after what happens in Episode 6, that's still within that era. Like, things have not like changed at all, and you can do a TV show where it's Luke Skywalker and it's all the main characters and whatnot, instead of older versions of them, which would be 20 years into the future or 15 years into the future, exploring themes and topics that we have no idea about. That's the thing. Those 30 years we haven't even laid the groundwork for yet. We just have one movie. But with Episodes 4 through 6, there's a ton of content there that you can, again, if you want, it could be a Darth Vader cartoon. Well,
the thing about it is, that would be crazy, by the way. Hold on, let me just stop it. I would be 100% down for a cartoon that focused on the machinations of the dark side of the Force and the Empire. Yeah. That would be kind of dope, especially in the wake of the gaps between 4 and 5 and 5 and 6. That would be actually kind of crazy. Yeah. I'd be down for that. But I also wanted to say that I disagree in saying that the groundwork hasn't been laid for the 30 years between 6 and 7, because first of all, they have like the novels that they're coming out, like Aftermath, right? So Aftermath is a set of novels, the canon novels that deal with the aftermath of the destruction of the second Death Star, aka the defeat and death of Emperor and Darth Vader. And it's not like at the end of the movie everybody's celebrating, they're partying with the whack ass Ewoks. Yeah. And we could definitely say that they're whack. That was George Lucas, man. Come on, son. So during that period, it's not like, oh, the Empire's defeated. Rebels win, they take over. Yeah. It's fractured, and it honestly makes incredible sense that would be the case, because you're not talking about, like, even if a country, right, a country, was leaders overthrown, there's going to be a power vacuum there. Imagine a whole galaxy, where they even say in the movies that the Emperor has basically disbanded the senators in the wake of the first Death Star being created and centralized control with himself. Yeah. So with him dying, that's going to create a huge vacuum, a dark hole size of vacuum in the Galactic Empire. So I think what I want to say is, in laying the groundwork, they already have those novels, right? The majority of people haven't checked those novels. If you're a Star Wars fan, you're watching the movies primarily, and if you're a diehard fan, you're watching the cartoon shows. And if you're going even further, like us, you're reading the comics, maybe the novels. But I do think the groundwork has been laid in that respect. That's one. And two, other than the groundwork is being laid by virtue of just having Luke, Leia, and Han. I just think if you bring those characters in, people are just going to be interested in what stories you have to tell. So for me, I think that, in addition to, the original trilogy being, prime real estate, I think that if you're going to want to give yourself the chance to have like some longevity and tell the most alluring stories, the stories that are going to draw people in just by the premise alone, I'm thinking you start things off, with those 3 characters right after that happens, that destruction, especially since it would be sick. Like, we're never going to see a young Luke Skywalker becoming a Jedi Master. It's not happening. Yeah. Like, he's old. He's 60 something. I think he's like 61 maybe. Mark Hamill's like 60 something years old. You're never going to see that again. You're never going to see, those characters the way they were. Yeah. So it would be amazing to see like Luke's growth. And not only that, the origins of Kylo Ren. Here, potentially.
See, here's
and the rise of Snoke and the rise of the First Order.
Here's where I slightly disagree.
Okay.
Because I feel that the movies are like the most important thing to them.
Okay.
So for that to happen, you would have to kind of work around the movies. And it'll always be a situation like what we see with Marvel, with TV and the movies. Or not even, well, sort of Marvel, but also DC. DC is also doing this as well, where they sometimes prevent the TV shows from doing things just in case they're going to do that in the movies.
Sure.
So, absolutely, it would be great to see older Luke, Han, Leia, origins of some of these characters, Kylo Ren and Snoke. Mm-hmm. But I feel that would be kind of encroaching in on what the movies are trying to do. Right.
Basically, you're saying it would be a little bit premature.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure in the movies they don't want to. They want to keep reveals and surprises and spoilers within the movies, and then after you find out, then obviously it's open season for people to come in and do any sort of extra content. Sure. Like I would be for it, but I think to say, oh, let's do a show where you see all these characters and what they were doing, and we learn more about Kylo Ren. Yeah. Like for example, they wouldn't do a show where it's like, oh, this is young Rey and Jakku, and obviously that's content that they want to reveal in the movies and not reveal in anything else. Yeah. So that's really like the main problem there, and the main reason why, because we're already done with episodes 3 through 6, or 4 through 6. Yeah. So it's like we can keep kind of expanding. There's nothing to spoil. There's just only things to add. And then the other issue would be is if we don't encroach with the familiar characters and the characters we know. If some of the characters are there, but maybe as cameos, then you're gonna have to make a new batch of characters and kind of expand the lore, which could make it a little bit more difficult. Which I think was maybe part of the problem with Rebels at first. Whenever you make a new group of characters, people are just like, "Who the hell are these people?" Right. People are automatically just negative
that's
to
what we
it.
said.
Yeah,
because we went from having Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Mace Windu, we had the heavy hitters in Clone Wars, to having like these ragtag, group of Jedi. And I remember, I'll never forget when Rebels was first announced and they showed Ezra. There's like, he looks like Aladdin, and he legit does look like Aladdin. Like it's true.
He does. Yeah.
Like people were hating on his look.
No.
But you bring up a good point too. Like I'm not gonna lie. Like it depends. So The Last Jedi is going to be coming out December of this year, of 2017. And then episode 9 is coming out, barring any delays, 2019. Yeah. So I see the point you're trying to make where, and it kind of ties back into what I was saying originally. My idea was that they would explore that 30-year gap after episode 9 was done, after the sequel trilogy was over. That being said, I still think that if they told a story that's closer to the end of episode 6, you know what I mean, then they'd be a little bit okay, like establishing the new Republic and the Adventures.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They shouldn't go, I did posit the idea of the origins of Kylo Ren, but I agree with that. I agree with you. They shouldn't go that far ahead. Yeah. I think they should stay closer to episode 6, if anything. I don't personally want to see more exploration in episode 4, between episode 4 and 5 or 5 and 6. I feel like it's too limited. But at the same time, I would have told you that I felt like the stories between episode 2 and 3 were limited, and then we got Clone Wars, which blew my mind. That show blew my mind and it so widened the Star Wars canon in an effective way that didn't necessarily step on the toes. The only thing I could say, it'd be probably difficult for people who just seen the movies to accept, is the fact that Darth Vader had a Padawan, or Anakin Skywalker had a Padawan. But even then, to that I'll say, like, obviously he was emotionally torn, and Anakin doesn't address his feelings, so there's no reason for him to bring it up in the movie. She's expelled from the Order. There's not really any reason for that to have been brought up in the movies, if that's your gripe. But back to the original point, I do think that if they did something, it would even be great to see like a show that's like the day after that celebration. Yeah, where it starts off. I mean, it'd be perfect for a show too, where it starts off with this happy feeling, this feeling of hope, and then it's like, wait a second, guys, you got to get to work.
I mean, to me, that's, well, I don't know. I don't want to say it's the most logical conclusion, but it's like the path of least resistance, where you have 3 iconic characters, right? Luke, Leia, Han. Luke is gonna rebuild the Jedi. Leia still with the rebellion, and we gotta snuff out these flames of the Empire. And Han,
and she's a budding politician
and
too.
she's a budding politician. And Han is Han, and there are adventures to be had. That's just, you could pretty much do any type of story. Who knows what's going on with Han Solo? He's a smuggler. He's out there doing his thing.
Right. And you can mimic the iconic characters that are in Clone Wars by having not just those three main people, but then you got Lando.
Yep.
You got Wedge Antilles.
Nice.
Like, you have all these heavy hitters from the original trilogy that would immediately draw people in. And let me just say, like, Clone Wars was, when that premiered, that was one of the biggest premieres, like, on Cartoon Network. And likewise for Rebels. So imagine you tell people, like, yo, we're going to make a cartoon that's based on the... Like, I don't think that era has been fully explored at all.
Nope.
And not in the way where you're making it accessible for people. You know what I mean? Like, not to say anything about comics or books, but let's be honest, most people don't want to sit down. Most people, the average Star Wars fan, you know what I mean? Because we forget, like, there are millions of Star Wars fans. There are very few that are on the level of, like, yo, TV shows, comics, you know, expanded
Universe.
Universe. Yeah. Is that what they're calling that? Expanded universe? EU?
Maybe. I'm not sure.
Oh, that's what they were calling. Yeah. Now they call it Legends. Sorry, yeah. That's what I was thinking of. They call it Legends.
Yeah.
So there's not many people that are doing that. So if you made an animated show with those characters, I mean,
I'm getting excited just thinking about it. I mean, I'm just like, imagine, you know, forget the day after. Imagine they do it a couple years in, maybe 5 years in. So as the show starts, you don't know everything that's happened from episode 6 to the beginning of this cartoon show. So you kind of, like, you know, Luke maybe has a few Jedi, and you're like, who are these guys? Like, what happened? There's a 5-year window there. There's room for
maybe
comics.
They're not. Maybe the original trilogy characters aren't even talking to each other. You're like, yo, why aren't they?
Yeah, they could be mad.
What happened?
If you do a little bit more into the future, maybe not too far into it, where they're a little older, you can maybe introduce a young Captain Phasma as a character, or you can introduce characters that people are like, oh, are those Rey's parents? Like, you know, you could introduce all these characters that they're just kind of floating domino pieces,
right?
Just to get people excited. You know what I mean?
And let's also remember, right? You've got fall 2018, you got fall 2019. That's 3 years. That's also the same year that the sequel trilogy would end.
Yep.
So you could literally build up. You could lay the groundwork for some of the things that you know, already known about the sequel trilogy with people not even knowing. That being said, we still have to be careful about that risk that you talked about, that you brought up, where you don't want to encroach too much on what the movies are trying to do. So that the show can, you know, and the movies can respectively do their own thing. But that being said, you know, I'm pretty sure there's major story ideas like, we know who Rey's parents are. We know who Snoke is. We know who this person is. If you want to, like, drop a little thing right there that people don't even notice. People won't even notice that, all right, this is the person that, you know, you think that this is the person that, you know, is in the sequel trilogy or is related to the sequel trilogy. And then the sequel, that the trilogy ends, and you go back to the shows and you're like, holy crap. Like, they were telling that story that whole time.
Yeah, or it could be a situation where, let's say you make Rey's parents and they're minor characters. They were like in 2 episodes. And then we find out in the movies. And that automatically elevates those 2 characters. So you could just kind of scoop them right back up and be like, all right, we're going to bring them into the fold. Like, they're just going to be major characters in whatever next season of the cartoon that we're doing. You know what I mean? And Rebels did the same thing. And Clone Wars sort of did the same thing. Or, you know, there was like a correlation between, obviously, the main trilogy and Rebels and Clone Wars and Rogue One. Rogue One kind of tied in with, you know, Saw Gerrera. He was like a little cameo appearance, and you know, they did a little nod to Rebels as well, here and there. You know, if you were familiar with the shows and you watched the movies, and you know, you probably did a little research online, it's a little something there. Like that means a lot as well. It doesn't even have to be like a direct tie-in. They could just, it's an expansive universe. You could do. There's a lot of room for content and interpretation and you know, having fun with the content.